but also speaking, right? Because when I speak my understanding, it clarifies for me what my understanding is. A lot of times I think I understand something until I try to explain. But also it gives me the opportunity to get feedback, right? So when we're talking about transcendental knowledge, a lot of times we think, well, hearing, that's important, but also speaking, whether that's in the form of giving class or simply discussing it with another devotee or writing about it, so that we get that back and forth to really make sure that this subject matter, which is so outside of our experience, that we're really giving ourselves the best chance to understand what it really is. Now, another level of this word knowledge is that this knowledge is meant to be transformative, right? Many times we meet devotees, or maybe people who aren't even devotees, maybe that's a better example. You have the scholars who study Bhagavad Gita at a level that most of us will never achieve, or people who have memorized the Gita since they were children, right? They know the Gita much more deeply than devotees might. But at the same time, they don't know it at all, right? Because they're not approaching it in the sense of, yes, I want my heart to be transformed. Yes, I want to engage with the Lord in his form of the sacred scripture. They're not seeking that relationship. So in that sense, they don't know the Gita. And I find for myself, many times, I know some point of scripture, some point of our philosophy, but I don't really know it at all because my heart is not being transformed. And that just means I have to keep working at it. It's just a part of the process of bhakti. But then that kind of brings up a couple of things. One is, well, how am I supposed to approach this text, this knowledge, in a way that gives me the best chance to know it as a transformative experience? And one is simply by approaching it in that mood, that please, Lord, transform my heart through this process. And the other thing is always to remember that association and service go hand in hand with understanding this knowledge, that the real transformative understanding does not come simply from memorizing verses, or being able to recite pastimes. It comes from interacting, with devotees, with devotional service. And even, the study of scripture can be transformed if we approach it as, this is my service, and not, as material that we are absorbing, right? Just that shift in consciousness. But there's another level, and this is, I think, maybe more pertinent to what I want to talk about. Another level on which this knowledge is important, and that's because it frames the way we understand our own experience. So we have experiences, and experiences are neutral, right? But we all have a context that we understand our experiences in. Simple example. I got up the other day. I was very excited to go and take a walk at this place that I know. And I was thinking about how amazing this walk was going to be in the sunshine, and it was warm, and the trees look a certain way. I really like the way the light comes in through the trees in this place, and there's a little pond, and all the stuff. And I just had this vision in my mind of what this experience was going to be like. And of course, that day it was raining, right? And so my material conditioning, the samskaras that I carry, give me this filter that says nothing ever works out for me. I am so unfortunate, right? And so when I saw it was raining, immediately that little filter popped up, and I felt very disappointed, right? But we get to choose our own filters. And a lot of times that's something we don't realize. Like, we are conditioned by the material energy in certain ways, through our upbringing, through our past lives, whatever. So we come with this filter, but we can always change it, right? So I could change my filter to, wow, I've never walked there in the rain. How exciting. This will be something new. It'll be beautiful in a different way, right? And so what studying the scriptures does is it gives us a new filter for our experiences, right? I grew up in a home, both my parents were alcoholics. So, very crazy, very dysfunctional. And that gave me a certain filter And one of those filters was that I am very unfortunate and I am a victim and, life is very hard. And because of that filter, I carried a lot of resentment about my upbringing, right? And when I met the devotees, I was exposed to this concept of karma, right? And not only is what I'm experiencing a result of my past actions, but because I'm asking Krishna for help, he's going to use those experiences to make my future better because I'm going to, be given the opportunity to make spiritual advancement. So that gave me the opportunity to transform resentment into gratitude. I'm still working on that, but it's a process. But the transcendental knowledge helps me understand that, okay, I can look at this in a different way. And by looking at it in a different way, I'm having a whole different experience. So as devotees, our goal is that we should understand everything that happens to us through this filter of transcendental knowledge. The more we read, the more we study, the more we understand who Krishna is, what his energies are, and how they work, the more we have that proper filter so that we can properly understand our experiences. And this is how knowledge can actually transform karma, even on the material level, right? So that when I understand what's happening in my life and I understand the way the material energy works, I can make different choices. I can come more up to the mode of goodness, which gives me the better chance to approach the transcendental. So here we're being given some knowledge about Krishna, about the material energy, and about our relationship with Krishna. And these are very, very important filters for us to carry with us through our daily lives, through our experiences. All right. So when we're talking about the material energy, the first thing that we see in this verse is that Krishna is the Lord of all energies, but he is untouched by his external energy. Okay. And so why is that important? First of all, it's important to understand that all of the energies are Krishna's. They all come from Krishna. Krishna says in Gita, Devi Hyesha Gunamayi Mama Maya Duratyaya Mam Eva Ye Papadante Mayam Itam Tarantite. This divine energy of mine, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome, but those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. And so we understand from this verse that this energy is actually Krishna's, right? That it is divine. A lot of times as devotees, we talk about the material energy as if she's, something nasty, right? And if we use her improperly, then we are experiencing her in that way. But ultimately, the material energy belongs to Krishna, and it is a divine energy. So when we have the proper understanding, the material energy is actually something positive. When we use the material energy in the proper way, she's very positive, and she helps us in our service. The other point to take away from here is we're not doing this alone. Nobody, no one, from the top down to the bottom, from Lord Brahma down to the ant, nobody is overcoming this material energy by the strength of their austerities, right? And sometimes, at least for me, I find myself with this subconscious belief that if I just practice enough austerities, I can become strong enough to withstand my own material impulses, that I can overcome my own material, weaknesses through the strength of my austerity. But that's not actually the path. At least as devotees, we've chosen a different path, right? All right. So another point that Krishna and Prabhupada in particular makes about this divine energy, right? Guna, which is a word for the material modes. Guna also means rope, right? And Prabhupada says that we are bound by this material energy. So he says somebody who's tied up, right? Somebody who's bound, they can't be freed by their own efforts. They need help. And they can't be freed by somebody else who is also tied up. Okay. So we're looking for this person, these people, this, whatever. Krishna, send help, please, right? I'm tied up by the material and we understand that the spiritual master, the association of devotees, this is the way we can become unbound. But the reason why I'm emphasizing this is, for me, one of my struggles is I don't like to ask for help. I don't like to admit that I have weaknesses, right? It's fundamental to this process of Krishna consciousness that we have to recognize our weakness and we have to ask for help. Okay. There is no other way to make advancement, right? And understanding myself, we talk about self-realization, right? Understanding myself and my own propensity to want to avoid asking for help, um, is for me a very important part of my journey in trying to acquire bhakti. So, all right. And I guess the reason why this is so, potent, so fresh for me right now is that this past, I don't know, year and a half, I really got a slap in the face, a very positive, encouraging slap in the face from the Lord, regarding my own understanding of who I am and what I should be doing. My husband and I moved to Mayapur, right? And I have this vision in my head of what a good devotee looks like, right? You do your grihasta thing, you get to the end of your life. I'm a grandmother now, my kids are grown. And so it's time to, really sink into, hearing and chanting, and we will go to Mayapur, we'll be in the Dham, and, I'm the Vaishnavi minister, and just be of so much service to all the Vaishnavis in India. And I just had this vision of who I was and how I was going to fit into a totally different culture, right? And I was really very distressed to discover that I didn't like living in Mayapur. I love Mayapur. I love visiting there. And that's part of the reason why I wanted to move there, is I've always had such really transcendental experiences there. But living there was a different experience, right? I really vastly underestimated the strength of my attachment to my children and my grandchildren. I found just simple things like, getting from one place to another. It's very different in India, and especially in rural India, than it would be in the US, and I didn't understand how materially conditioned I was to a particular way of life. So it was very difficult. Now, having said that, if it had been clear to me that that's where Krishna wanted me to be, then those difficulties would have been something to work through. But as I'm trying to work through these difficulties, it became clearer and clearer to me, for other reasons, this is not the service that Krishna had for me. This is not what I was supposed to be doing. And I was so frustrated that, I felt like I had failed, right? Because I made this choice to go and do something, and then it turned out that it was much more difficult than I expected, and that what didn't look like it was what Krishna wanted me to do. And I felt like a failure because I had made a quote unquote mistake, right? And I'm looking at this whole experience from the standpoint of, I am the decision maker, I am the controller, and I have this expectation of how this is all supposed to unfold to validate what a good decision maker and controller I was. And as long as I looked at the experience through that lens, I was frustrated, I felt, guilty, I felt, whatever, just a whole bundle of negative, to the point where I didn't want to be around myself, and I don't think anybody else wanted to be around me, and it took kind of, a little bit of a talking to from my husband, to kind of shake me out of that and understand, wait a minute, you're not Krishna. Why do you think that every decision you make is going to unfold in this, flawless, peaceful, wonderful way? Why do you think that the practice of Krishna consciousness is always going to be elegant and graceful? What's wrong with the practice of Krishna consciousness where you struggle a little bit and where you try something and you find that it didn't work and you learn something from that. The point of all of this is to achieve bhakti, not to impress yourself or someone else with how, well and elegantly you live your life. What is it exactly that you're trying to accomplish, Radha? Right? And then it became clear to me that yes, I lacked some understanding of myself. I lacked some understanding of the situation I was going into, and as a result, I learned something, right? Krishna says in Gita, everybody has their own nature, right? Better to do your own duty poorly than someone else as well, right? We have to understand who we are, what we need to be peaceful and to maintain our service. A lot of times, especially at the beginning of the movement, we do austerities for Krishna, and the early devotees did austerities because those austerities were absolutely essential to getting this movement started. And we can do austerities for a period, right? But most of the time, for most of us, putting ourselves in a situation where we don't fit is not sustainable, right? And so we have to keep that in mind because we're not trying to be devotees for 5 years or 10 years. We're trying to be devotees for our whole lifetime. So we have to understand ourselves. We have to be flexible and able to adapt when we're in situations that aren't quite working. And we have to have some grace and understanding that there are no wrong decisions, right? When I was a young devotee, I used to agonize over what does Krishna want me to do, with this feeling that if I didn't get it right, everything was going to be ruined, right? And so many times it seemed super clear to me that Krishna wanted me to turn right, and I would turn right only to realize that no, actually Krishna wanted me to turn left, But every time I had one of those experiences, there was a whole lot of mercy in it. I would learn something, I would meet someone, I would connect with something in a way that, was unexpected. And I would always take something with me out of that experience that was then useful later in my life, And finally, I realized Krishna is going to be there and he's going to be supporting me and he's going to be helping me, learn through my karma. He's going to be helping me learn how to make spiritual advancement, whatever choices I make, right? If I turn right or I turn left, if I turn right and I was supposed to turn left, Krishna nudges me through discomfort until I realize, oh, I was supposed to turn left. But none of that time is wasted. None of those mistakes are, in the transcendental sense, wrong, as long as I'm leaning on Krishna and looking for the lessons that he's teaching me, because then I'm getting what I'm supposed to be getting, right? The goal is not for me to be peaceful and have everyone think I'm elegant and graceful. The goal is for me to make spiritual advancement. And if I'm leaning on Krishna, I'm leaning on the devotees, then no matter what I do, those lessons are going to come. So what is the thing, having said all this, it's like, great, Radhadasi, you've got it all figured out. Wonderful. What is it that trips me up? Because I still, obviously, I'm talking about how as a young devotee, I had these experiences and I learned this lesson and, here I am 62 years old and I'm having the same lesson all over again, right? So what is it that's tripping me, right? And one of the things that trips me up is, I think I mentioned earlier, mistaking austerity for advancement, right? Mistaking my ability to put myself in a miserable situation and endure it, or, whatever, challenge my psychosocial nature in whatever way, and work that through, and mistaking that for spiritual advancement. I As part of this most recent experience I had in Mayapur, one of the misconceptions I had to confront was my subconscious belief that happiness, material happiness, is problematic. Okay. It's very important to understand that material happiness is limited and temporary. It is not the goal of life. We hear that a lot, and it's true. We should understand, we should be convinced that material happiness is not the goal of life. Okay. But material happiness, like material miseries, comes and goes. It's a part of life, right? And sometimes as devotees, we feel like, well, if I'm materially happy, I'm doing something wrong, right? Or making a choice that maybe is, neutral in terms of our service and our, devotional lives, but that increases our material happiness would be the wrong thing to do, right? Or maybe thinking that if I'm materially miserable, it proves what a great devotee I am. It's somehow beneficial. And someone pointed out to me that Krishna is actually, he does not condemn material happiness. In fact, in the Bhagavad Gita, he says, um, you know, that when the universe is created, one of the instructions is, be thou happy by this yajna, right? So yajna is given to us as a way to become materially happy, right? And to position ourselves for liberation. It's not the goal, right? It's not the thing that we're chasing after, but it's also not something that we have to shy away from. And maybe this is just my struggle. Maybe nobody else can relate to this. But that just was kind of revelatory for me because I realized like I'm sometimes sabotaging myself and it ends up impacting my service in a negative way because I think I'm supposed to be unhappy, right? Um, I think I'm suspicious of material happiness and I want to avoid it. If you're transcendental, doesn't matter, right? You can be in any situation and you will do your service beautifully. Doesn't matter. I'm not transcendental, right? So I have to take into account my psychosocial nature and where I'm going to fit. And there's a certain level of material comfort that I need in order to be able to maintain my service. Um, I still struggle with that idea. And I think what I'm really struggling with is the idea that I'm not transcendental, that I'm not perfect, right? And that's just false ego. That's just false ego. So I have to let that. Okay. The other piece that kind of comes up for me in this context is that I have a lot of shame, right? And shame is this feeling that I'm inherently unworthy. And that was programmed into my material consciousness, definitely in this lifetime, maybe in past lifetimes, who knows, but it's just there, right? And it's one of the things that makes it hard for me to ask for help. It's one of the things that makes me need to always present this facade that, I'm doing everything properly and I'm not struggling, having this wonderful transcendental experience at all times, which is far from the truth, right? But there's this subconscious feeling that I am so unworthy that if you knew what I was really like, all the devotees would kick me out of ISKCON if they knew what I was really like, right? So I'm always trying to maintain this facade so that I won't get kicked out of the association of devotees, which is really kind of um, underestimating the mercy of the devotees, right? You know, but this process, this journey that I'm on right now has involved trying to understand this shame is an anartha, right? This is an unwanted thing that is impacting my service in a negative way. It is something that I need to let go. And as part of that process of trying to unpack and eliminate that shame, I've been meditating on, what when I feel unworthy, like what does it mean to be worthy as a devotee? What does it mean to be worthy of a relationship with Krishna? And on a philosophical level, I understand, and I hope we all understand, that there is no such thing as being unworthy to have a relationship with Krishna. Having a relationship with the Krishna is an inherent part of who we are, and nothing we do or say or think or experience, nothing can make us unworthy of having that relationship with Krishna. It isn't possible. We are all, I, Radha, am worthy of having a relationship with Krishna, right? And if we look at our scriptures, so many times this message is given, to devotees, to all of us, because it's so important, because many of us struggle with this idea that I'm not worthy, right? Or we may want to judge others as not being worthy, which is really part of the same thing. So we have these examples in our scriptures to remind us that you can't become unworthy of Krishna's love. And the quintessential example, of course, is Shakai and Madai. Okay? And I think it's worth, kind of going over that a little bit and emphasizing some of the details that we don't always talk about. One of those details is that Jagai and Madai were expert at being sinful. Okay. I can look at my catalog of sins. Prabhupada said famously, "You're not the most of anything," to someone who said, "I am the most fallen," right? And Jagai and Madai, no matter how fallen we think we are, they got us beat, right? In terms of sinful activities. They committed so many sinful activities that Lord Gamaraj couldn't keep up with recording all of their sinful activities, right? To make this point of however big my sinfulness, my unworthiness feels to me, Krishna's mercy is bigger. Krishna's love is bigger, right? And so not only, did Krishna, did Lord Chaitanya, give them the mercy in spite of their sinfulness. But when Madai says to Lord Chaitanya, I can't get past this feeling of shame. I feel so unworthy. I committed so many sinful activities. Lord Chaitanya accepts those sinful activities as Madai's offering to him. Right? That's such an amazing act of mercy, such an amazing, intimate act of love. That Krishna doesn't just love us when we're good. He doesn't just love us for the service that we do. He loves every part of us. He loves us completely, even our sins, right? Providing that we're willing to give them up. We need to give them up. And you don't want to gloss over that point. But the point is that his love encompasses everything that we are. So if we feel unworthy, that's okay, because Krishna still loves us. Right? When I first came into the association of devotees, and people would talk about how fallen they were, we recite prayers that say, I have no good qualities, I depend on the mercy of my spiritual master, completely useless and worthless, and I would feel like, okay, this sounds like low self-esteem, right? But what it means is you don't have to have an entry price. You don't have to buy a ticket. There's nothing that I have to bring to this relationship with Krishna, right? Just showing up is enough. Just saying, Krishna, I would like to deepen my relationship with you. I don't know what I'm doing. I have all these, weaknesses and anarthas, things that I need to get rid of, and I don't know how to do that. So please help me. And that's all. We don't have to do any big service. We don't have to have all these transcendental qualities. Now, for me, I'm going to say this out loud because I need to commit to this. Saying that part is okay. I can do that. What I'm coming to understand is I also have to say that to devotees, right? I have to have people in my life that I can say, I am struggling. I am fallen. I have this anartha, and I need your help. You, my friend, my spiritual master, my spiritual teacher, my colleague, whatever. I need your help in this moment. And as I said, that's just been very difficult for me. And it's something that Krishna is forcing me to learn how to do right now. All right. So, we talked about the all-encompassing love of Krishna, and I just want to touch on the all-encompassing love of Srila Prabhupada as well, because that also, that Prabhupada's mercy is so amazing. And Shamsundar Prabhu, in the first volume of his memoir, Chasing Rhinos with the Swami, describes one experience with Srila Prabhupada that I think really exemplifies this. Shamsundar Prabhu carved the first deities of Lord Jagannath in ISKCON. Prabhupada asked him to do this service. And the early devotees, they were in the modes of passion and ignorance because that's where they were when they met Srila Prabhupada. And he engaged them anyway, right? So Shamsundar Prabhu is working on these deities, but he hasn't quite come to the level of following all of the regular principles. And also he's taking a long time for whatever reason. So at one point, Prabhupada goes to where Shamsundar is working, and he wants to check on the progress of the deities. So he sees that Shamsundar Prabhu has, finished the deity of Lord Jagannath. And he's working on Baladev, and there's a packet of cigarettes that Shamsundar Prabhu had left on Jagannath's head, right? So I don't know, little ISKCON devotee me, hears the story and thinks, oh my gosh, how offensive. Like if somebody I knew did something like that, I would think, well, they can never make advancement. They're so fallen, like never let them in the Pujari room again. Of course, we have our standards. We would have to say that. But that's our instinctive reaction, right? This is so terrible, so offensive. How could you even carve Lord Jagannath when you don't understand that you can't put anything on top of his head, much less, your intoxication, right? And Prabhupada, when he saw this, Shamsundar said he took his cane and knocked the cigarettes off of the deity, like, okay, this is not good, don't do this. But then he said to Shamsundar, I talked to him about the cigarette smoking, told him he's not supposed to do it, suggested, okay, why don't you smoke one less cigarette each day until you quit. And meanwhile, go on with your service, right? And that's the mercy, right? That even when we are not qualified, and even so, we qualify for this mercy. We qualify for Krishna's love, and we qualify to be in ISKCON and to do service. Right? Maybe not always the place we want or the service we want or, whatever. All kinds of things have to be adjusted sometimes, but we qualify to be here. We qualify to be part of this movement. And as part of this understanding, I kind of have to reframe who is Krishna, right? The purport here and the verse talks about how Krishna is in everyone's heart, right? Krishna is a Paramatma. Well, maybe it's Judeo-Christian upbringing or, I don't know, the shame-based thinking or whatever, but I do have a tendency to default to Krishna is going to be mad at me, Krishna, God as the judging, punishing father with the lightning bolts, right? Make a mistake and, who knows what could happen to you. Right? So that's not Krishna, right? Krishna says he is Suridam Sarvabhutanam. He's the well-wishing friend of every living entity. Krishna is not a liar, right? So when he says he's our friend, what does he mean? He means that he has our best interest at heart. He means that he's going to be there for us. I mean, if you just think about what does it mean to be a friend? A friend is somebody you can trust, right? A friend is somebody who supports you. A friend is someone who's affectionate, who cares about you and wants you to care about them, is welcoming your love, right? That's what Krishna means when he's a friend. And the pastime of Sudam Brahman, kind of shows me how I could work on my consciousness to understand this a little bit better. Because Sudam Brahman, he goes to visit Krishna, right? And he needs something, right? And he goes there and he doesn't ask for the thing he needs, which kind of reminds me of myself, although our motivations would be completely different. But he leaves and he hasn't been given the thing that he needed because he didn't ask for it or for whatever reason, right? And he's going home. And in that situation, I would be thinking, see, Krishna doesn't care, or I'm not allowed to have this. I can't ask Krishna for it. I'm not allowed to have it, and because he's asking for something material or he's desiring something material. Right? But Sudam Brahman is not thinking like that, right? He's thinking about how affectionate Krishna was to him, how much mercy he got. He's got this gratitude going on. And he's also assuming that Krishna has his best interest at heart, that, Krishna knows what I want. He understands that Krishna's mission. But obviously he didn't think it was the best for me because he didn't give it to me, right? And this faith, this trust, this belief that Krishna wants what's best for me, that Krishna is taking care of me, even though I don't see it or understand it in this moment, or I'm not getting what I want in this moment, understanding that, yeah, Krishna is taking care. That's so powerful, right? And as it turns out, obviously, yes, Krishna was taking care of him the whole time. He gets home and everything he needs is right there. And I have, like I said, I have this default filter that I have from childhood that makes me look at my life in a certain way and causes me to believe that I am not experiencing the same thing that Sudama Brahman experienced. But when I put in a different filter, I can see that I absolutely am having the same experience. And what I mean by that is there are so many times in my life when I have felt alone, abandoned, desperate, right? And I worry about what's going to happen to me, how something's going to turn out. And every time Krishna has come through for me, that what I needed, it either turns out that what I needed wasn't what I thought I needed, or what I needed was right there all the time, or whatever. But when I open my eyes, I can see that Krishna has been taking care of me all along. That I'm just like Sudama Brahman on the way home, between seeing Krishna and receiving the benediction in that space. That's where I live my life, right? And I just don't have the same understanding Sudama Brahman has. And one of the things that really brought this home for me was somebody suggesting that I write down some of the things that I think and then go back and revisit them. And what this person suggested was, because I worry a lot about what's going to happen, right? She said, why don't you write down for a week everything that you worry about? All of the fears that you have about things that Krishna isn't going to take care of, or that you feel like you have to take care of, that you can't take care of, whatever. Just write them all down, right? And at the end of the week, I looked back and it was like, none of those things had happened. Not one. Right? As my head is full of all this anxiety and all this, but actually none of this is true. And my husband had an experience in Mayapur recently where he just heard a voice saying, what if everything was perfect all along? Right? It's like, I don't know what that means, but what if? What if everything was perfect all along? And it was just my perspective that made it seem right. And I'm coming to the belief that that's really true. Everything is perfect. It's just my perspective doesn't allow me to recognize it. So that worry journal, whatever, that was really helpful. The other thing that has been really helpful is gratitude journals, right? That when I go through my life writing down on a regular basis things that I'm grateful for, I suddenly see that Krishna is always working, that Krishna is always there and he's always taking care. It's that filter, it's that, what am I looking for? If I'm looking for the spaces of negativity, that's all I'm going to see. If I'm looking for the evidence of Krishna's presence in my life, that's what I'm going to see, right? And Krishna as Paramatma is embodying his commitment to us, right? It's like, I feel alone. I feel like I have to do everything myself. I feel like I am struggling, because I am not Krishna conscious. It's all I, right? And the whole time Krishna is here, it's not that I have to figure all this stuff out. It's not that I have to become Krishna conscious. It's that I have to stop resisting Krishna when he's helping me, because Krishna is right here and he's helping me all the time. So one of the things that I have to learn in this process of becoming Krishna conscious is accepting Krishna's mercy. Right? For a lot of times I was struggling a long time in my devotional life. I was struggling with the idea that I had to find Krishna's mercy. Right? Now I'm coming to understand that Krishna's mercy is all around me all the time. The problem is not that Krishna has his mercy off in some little secret space and I got to go. The problem is I got my hands like this, right? Krishna's trying to give me the mercy and I'm going, nope, sorry, I'm fine. You know, I got everything under control. So this process of learning how to open my hands and accept Krishna's mercy. And for me right now, that process is a lot about admitting that I don't have everything together, you know, admitting that I get up in the morning and, you know, my head is full of a lot of insanity. I don't know what to do with it, you know, and admitting that I need help, admitting that I need Krishna's help, and admitting that I need your help, that I need the association of devotees, you know, that I need the instructions of my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, and I need to hold on to those things. Right. So that's what I have to share with you today. And I am so much looking forward to your questions and comments. So please.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Grace, Mother Radha Devi. It's very interesting and beautiful how, with such a very short purport, you were able to deliver what you just gave us. Of course, I heard from His Holiness Guru Govinda Maharaj that one can speak for months on just one word from the Bhagavatam. So, but it's very interesting because personally, it's difficult for me to speak on a text that does not have much purport from Srila Prabhupada. So we thank you. Devotees, anyone with questions, comments, realizations, please? Kusha Prabhu, please, you may unmute. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, please, in the course of your lecture, you made mention about how you and your husband moved to Mayapur.
Mm-hmm.
So, according to Prabhupada's instruction, devotees should come to Mayapur for Gopurnima, get energized, and go back to their countries and preach Krishna consciousness. So, what is your opinion on devotees leaving America, Europe, the Western world, and residing permanently in Mayapur? 10, 15, 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
Are they following the orders of Prabhupada? And we complain we're not making more devotees. What's your opinion on this? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Yeah, I know for me personally, that was Krishna's message was, you know, you have service, you know, that you need to do in North America and you need to go back there. That was definitely Krishna's message to us. I don't have an opinion on the lives of other devotees, you know, specific devotees, because everybody's situation is different, right? And some devotees go, you know, to Mayapur for 6 months a year and go back and preach. Some devotees, I misunderstood, you know, that possibly my service was meant to be in, you know, and maybe at some point, you know, Krishna will have that service for me in India. Who knows? But again, it was like, you know, I mean, this is what I think I should. And as I said, sometimes I get that wrong, and it's okay because I learned a lot. You know, I learned some very important things in making this endeavor. But yeah, the importance of the fact that this is a preaching movement, and wherever we are, you know, we are obligated to share this great fortune. That cannot be underestimated.
Hare Krishna. Well,
Thank you. My second question is, no one is worthy. You mentioned in your class. But when we write a letter, sometimes we put you are unworthy servant to fellow devotees. When we use the word, you are unworthy servant, are we committing an offense?
If we say that I am unworthy?
Yes. When we write a letter?
Yeah. if we understand that by saying I am unworthy, what we're saying is I'm not entitled, right? I am not entitled to bhakti. Bhakti is independent. You know, this is also the flip side of this, you know, struggle that I'm going through. You know, I'm feeling like I have to do this by myself and I can't, right? But the flip side of that, Anarta, is I am doing so much service. I am doing so many austerities. I am whatever I'm doing. And now I am entitled to spiritual advancement, right? And Krishna is not making a bargain with us. You don't bargain for bhakti, right? So it's not that if I chant so many rounds in, you know, such austere circumstances that Krishna is obliged to take me back to God. You know? And so when we say I'm unworthy, we're acknowledging this, that yes, I am coming for your mercy. You know, bhakti is causeless. So it's not always the words, but it's the understanding behind the words.
Okay, my last question is on the verse of today. The screen. In the papers, Prabhupada mentioned undoubtedly the form of the Lord who was seen by Brahma was transcendental. So my question is, which Brahma? We know about the story that there are four Brahma with 4 heads, 100 heads, 1,000 heads. So which of the Brahma is Prabhupada talking about here? That look at the energy
So that
that being touched.
In this universe, there is one Brahma. In each universe, there is one Brahma. This Bhagavatam that we're reading is for this universe. And so it's the Brahma in this universe.
All right, thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Krishna Prabhu, for your questions. And thank you, Mother Radha, for the beautiful answers. Anyone else with questions, comments? Mother, you were talking.
Krishna.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry. Mitra.
Thank you. No problem. No problem. Thank you, dear brother.
Go ahead, please.
Hare Krishna. Please send my obeisances over to Srila Prabhupada, Radha Dasi. It's very nice to see you here on the platform. I wanted to appreciate your comment on material energy. You know, there's a lot of communication in our movement on it being, you know, staying away from it. You know, it's making it, in a sense, seem like it's a bad thing. And I wanted to appreciate you balancing it out with how you don't feel that it's a bad thing. In the Christian paradigm, money is considered the root of all evil. This is one of the things I remember as a child hearing over and over again. And so I want to relate it to the youth. If we're sharing that material energy is negative, in Krishna consciousness, we understand that Lakshmi Devi is a servant of Krishna. Everything that we can see or touch has been created by Krishna. So it's not the thing. It is how we are using it or our intent to use it by. So opulence, nice things are not bad. Krishna provides everything. But I wanted to appreciate you publicly as a Prabhupada disciple, sharing that on the platform for everyone to kind of contemplate. It's not bad. Material energy is not bad. I wanted to thank you for that.
Thank you for your comment. I want to clarify, I'm not a Prabhupada disciple. I'm a disciple of Mukunda Goswami. But your comment reminds me of a pastime I've heard devotees talk about with Prabhupada, where there was I think it was a photograph in an Indian newspaper of a Swami going like this, you know, to a pile of money. And Prabhupada saying to the devotees, you can take a picture of me going like this, you know, as if he's going to scoop the money up. Because when you use it for Krishna service, you know, that's the proper use of the material energy. And, you know, then the material energy is glorious. Yeah. Yeah. And I think also for, at least in North America, I don't know what it was like in Africa, but in North America, you know, we did kind of have this attitude as younger devotees that there was something suspect about, material education, material wealth, all these things. And that maybe wasn't the ideal message to give to our children. If you're on the transcendental platform, you don't need to worry about these things. But if you are going to raise a family, you're going to live in society, if you're going to be at the stage of bhakti where we are still dovetailing our propensities at Krishna service, then you have to think about these things.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Mother, for the explanation. And Mitravinda, thank you for your acknowledgement. I have this question. Two things I kind of enjoy a lot in devotional service is reading of Back to Godhead magazine. And not the entire magazine, but a small portion where it says Srila Prabhupada speaks out. That's my favorite section, because there Srila Prabhupada gives to the world the way the world should receive it. Sometimes and oftentimes quite strong. And I like such strong words used by Srila Prabhupada. Second is Srila Prabhupada's memories, where I hear Srila Prabhupada's disciples share their pastimes with Srila Prabhupada. So I listened to this pastime of Shamsundra Prabhu when he was carving Lord Jagannath and had a pack of cigarette on top of Lord Jagannath. And Srila Prabhupada kicking the pack of cigarette with his cane. And he didn't think much about it. So, like you were saying, we see the merciful and compassionate nature of the Acharya. But at the same time, I also heard from another disciple of Srila Prabhupada who had done some wonderful service for Srila Prabhupada in Africa. He was an American. And when he came back to America, he was sharing his services in Kenya, Nairobi, with Srila Prabhupada. And he said, Srila Prabhupada was saying that there are so many rascals in our movement, and we have to find them and weed them out. And so he thought that Srila Prabhupada was speaking to him. So he said, Prabhupada, I don't know what I did wrong. And Srila Prabhupada said, no, I'm not talking about you. You are a nice devotee. But there are lots of rascals in our movement, and we have to find them and then weed them out of the movement. So my thinking is that Srila Prabhupada did what he did with Shamsundra Prabhu because Srila Prabhupada could tell that Shamsundra Prabhu genuinely wanted to serve, but he did not know what was right, what was wrong. But someone may use this example to continue doing his or her nonsense. So I would like you to throw a little bit more light on these different scenarios where Srila Prabhupada wants rascals weeded out of the organization, and then one time Srila Prabhupada tolerating someone who is doing something that is very, very contrary to our principles. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. That's a very good question. This is where maturity in spiritual life really comes into play, because what you're talking about is a question of balance. And most things in spiritual life, when you are practicing for, a number of years, it becomes about balance, because you have these competing mercy, but also purity in the movement, and so you're trying to balance these things. Shamsundar, yes, there was the sincerity. you know. And also, let's not overlook that Prabhupada gave him parameters like, okay, this is where you're at. You're smoking cigarettes, you're, serving the Lord, but you need to stop smoking the cigarettes. And here's the path to get there. So it's not that Prabhupada was saying, do whatever you like and serve the Lord. But Prabhupada obviously could see the sincerity of a devotee. And for most of us, I don't see into people's hearts, right? And many times there were devotees who even, acted in a way like Shamasundar Prabhu was doing the best he could and didn't know what the proper standard was. But, there were devotees that actively knew what they were doing was wrong and did it anyway. And Srila Prabhupada still, gave them another chance and another chance. So don't underestimate that mercy factor, because really all of us are asking for mercy, right? If we got justice, we'd be disappointed. We are all asking for mercy. But then at the same time, is kind of as an institution has to adhere to certain standards. If we water down our standards, we weaken our movement. And also we have to protect devotees, right? Whether that means protecting them from abuse or protecting their faith, protecting them from being misled. So that's where it really takes maturity. And at least for me personally, because I'm not, a temple president or a GBC who has to take responsibility for kicking people out of communities or out of ISKCON. Fortunately for me, I don't have that responsibility. For me, I have to understand that whatever someone has done and whatever consequence they may face, as a result of their activity, I have to understand that they're still Krishna's servant. They're still Krishna's child. They're still a devotee. So, we may say, hey, you violated the regulative principles. You cannot serve as a pujari anymore. That's just, the way the institution works, and it has to work like that. But I think where we take it too far is in a lot of communities I've lived in anyway, there would then be the whole gossip and shunning, and there would be a whole lot more that went with that didn't have anything to do with protecting the institution or protecting our standards, but was really about shaming the person or making myself feel better because I'm not as fallen as you, or whatever. And I think that's the part that all of us as individuals can really let go of, that when we see somebody struggling, we can understand that they're sick. They're, we don't, you don't get mad at somebody for catching COVID, right? It's like they need help. I lived in a community once where there was a brahmachari who had swindled an elderly Vaishnavi who was unmarried, had no children, basically an unprotected Vaishnavi. He swindled her out of a large sum of money, right? And I just couldn't understand, first of all, how somebody who claimed to be a devotee would do such a thing and not be afraid of the karma that they were going to get, and just on a material level, who takes advantage of an old lady, right? And I still, struggle to find compassion for that person, to understand that whatever he was going through, it's like, should he have been reported to the police? Should he have had to repay the money? Should he have gone to jail? Yeah, probably all of those things. But at the same time, he's still a devotee, and to understand that he's still a devotee. I don't know if that's helpful in answering your question. I hope it is.
Well, thank you. I think it's a repetition or a reflection of yesterday's class we had on this very platform. The speaker was saying in this line that the least we can do as devotees to anybody, regardless of their devotional status, whether they are devotees or not devotees, is to respect each and everyone. But if someone is inimical, then we respect him or her from a distance. So I believe it's the same thing you're repeating here, that if even somebody is wrong or whatever, evil we might think that person has committed, we still should see the person as a devotee. We just don't have to like bring him into our fold to do his nonsense, but from distance, we should still respect that particular individual. I think that is what I got from you. I don't know if that is right understanding from what you were saying.
Yeah, yeah. And, sometimes we'll have a devotee who, can't associate with the community because of whatever they've done wrong. And individual devotees, will still maintain contact, still give mercy, and that can also be good.
All right. Okay, thank you. So we go to His Grace Shriman Varaha Acharya Prabhu, please, you may unmute.
Jai Hare Krishna. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to the assembled devotees. First, I must thank you for your wonderful Krishna Katha and explanation of the Bhagavatam text. I very much appreciate the way you were giving the lecture from a personal point of view, and it makes it like very sweet and very easy to relate to. But what I want to say, a comment, it's not really like a question, but a comment that, for instance, the way you express yourself and explain, the text, it takes a lot of, I would say, boldness, a lot of maturity to be able to speak out, personally like this in public. What is the point I'm trying to make? That for most people, spiritual life is about rules. And those who have outgrown that sometimes may find it difficult to express themselves in the public because they may be understood, they may be misunderstood. And so your style of preaching is very interesting because it helps many people to be able to at least grasp the aspect that spiritual life is individual. It is your individual relationship with God. And especially what should be emphasized is our love for God. If the atmosphere can increase that, if the atmosphere can engender that, and the more our love is manifested or that love is growing, then many things become secondary. Many things become secondary. So that is not always being addressed. More of the focus is on rules and things like that. So this aspect of bhakti is actually not easy for neophytes to understand. They cannot, because, like I said, like Srila Prabhupada once said, it is not an international society for rules. And we see it, we see it in his ways of dealing with his disciples. But at the same time, he made us to understand, if you really love God, you will do what God wants. If you really love him, if you love somebody, you don't want to do something that will displease that person. So the aspect of love of God was very much being emphasized by Prabhupada. Once it was asked, what will please you most? Prabhupada, people were waiting to hear him say, distribute my books or something. And he said, if you love Krishna. So Prabhupada never deviated from that point of what is actually Krishna consciousness. What is the whole bhakti about? Love of God. But many neophytes, and excuse me to say, maybe I'm also one, but I've come to the understanding and to the point of knowing that not so many people can understand this aspect of bhakti. They cannot. Like sometimes discussing the behaviors of some devotees or pujaris in Jagannath Puri, or some devotees in Vrindavan, Brajabasi, some of their ways which are out of the way. We cannot phantom it. We think, no, that cannot be. that cannot be Krishna consciousness because it has to be by the rules. But we have also had several times that once you love God, once your attachment to God is already established, then all rules are out of the question. I mean, we have seen many examples of the Goswamis and so on, like just, these rules just aside. That does not mean that they are deviant. They are not deviant. But the rule is not placed before love of God. They will do anything for Krishna, even if it means doing something which is like contrary to principle. They don't care as long as it's pleased, if it is for pleasure of Krishna. And we've seen many examples of that, but it's never become our way of meditation. So we like very fixated on faults, not only on others, but on ourselves also. That brings guilt, that brings shame, and makes us never to be able to enjoy the bhakti. So I thank you very much, for your presentation. And I hope that our devotees can become more and more matured in their understanding. But this is personal. It cannot be in mass. It cannot be legalized or legislated. It is personal. It is in our growth that it will come up. Thank you once again. Excuse me for talking too much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you for your comment, Prabhu. Yeah, I know one of the reasons why we emphasize the rules is that we can easily fool ourselves, and I do that. Yeah, I'm above the rules, right? We sometimes want to jump to a stage we're not at, and the rules are very important to protect us as we're working on bhakti. But the point that you make that, I heard one devotee say that, serve the principle, not the rules, right? That the principle is to become Krishna conscious, and the rules are there to help us become Krishna conscious. So to always remember the goal, right, is very important. And I share from my personal experience because that's the realization I have, that's all I have to offer. But my experience has been that when I do that, other devotees can relate, and I think sometimes when no one is sharing their own internal journal, their own internal journey or struggle, we all think everybody else has it together and I'm the only one who's struggling. The truth is we're all struggling, but that struggle is glorious.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. It's very interesting. Shimavara Prabhu trying to say something briefly about part of your beautiful comment is when devotees ask Srila Prabhupada, how can we please you? And the answer he gave, when it became evident that my Gurudev was going to leave us from this material plane, I also approached him in a very fearful manner because I was afraid that if I approach him to ask him what he would want me to do in his physical absence and I'm unable to do it, that is a double curse upon my head. But I also wanted to know from him what he would want me to do in his physical absence. So I went to see him and he told me the same thing, just love Krishna. And thank God, I did not understand what that meant. I asked His Holiness Giriraj Swami Maharaj, and he beautifully explained it to me. So thank you for sharing that. But Mother Radha, I have one more question. And that is, you said so many things that are very interesting and touching. But one I would like to ask is, transforming our resentment to gratitude.
Yeah.
I find this to be very, very poignant and very important, but I am lost in the wilderness as to how to transform my resentment to gratitude. If something bad, something I do not want in my life, something I do not expect in my life is going on in my life, how do I transform that into gratitude and expressing appreciation to the Lord for letting me go through this experience? And two, how do I know that this particular situation that is giving me this resentment is actually of Krishna's, or is Maya's, or is my own nonsense? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. What a good question. Yeah. Well, I will say for me, transforming resentment into gratitude is a process. It's not that I look at something and go, oh, now I'm grateful. It's something I have to actively work at. And I'm still, actively working on a lot of resentments. Radha Swami said once that to be Krishna conscious means to be grateful for every single thing in your life. Every single thing. And I remember hearing that and thinking, okay, that's impossible. That's absolutely impossible, But I also know that, these saintly people don't ask us to do the impossible, that, if they give an instruction, it's worth something. It's not to be dismissed. So for me, part of it is reframing, because my resentment generally is not about the event. It's about the story I'm telling myself about the event. Right. My father was an alcoholic. He was abusive in these certain ways. And that's unfair. I should not have had to be born into that family. I should have had a different father. I should have been treated differently. Okay. All of those shoulds are based on an assumption about what I think I deserve. When karma comes into the picture, somebody says, oh, you're experiencing your karma from your last life. It kind of changes the shoulds. Oh, okay. Well, maybe that's not the correct perspective, right? And when we understand, when someone turns to Krishna and says, I want to know you, Krishna takes personal charge of their karma. Okay, so that doesn't mean that, okay, now we never get any negative reactions. We still get all the reactions we were going to get until we become transcendental. But Krishna's personally directing it so that it's giving me the best opportunity to learn what I need to know to make spiritual advancement. My husband likes to say Krishna is not sentimental, right? So just like the wise parent doesn't protect the child from all the reactions of their activities, right? Krishna is that wise father. He doesn't protect us from all our reactions because those reactions are designed to help us learn something. And I will be honest with you, when I am in the middle of a situation I don't like, my first thought is not, oh, thank you, Krishna, for giving me this opportunity to learn something that I've not otherwise learned. My first thought is, why are you doing this to me? And that's when I have to turn to prayer. Okay, Krishna, you know what's going on inside my heart. I am pissed at you. I am, feeling hardly used. I am feeling, like you are not fair. I'm feeling all of these things, so you are the powerful. You please help me remember, help me see the lesson, and, just help me get through this experience. And please forgive the fact that I'm going to be mad at you the whole time. Being 62 instead of 26, right? I have a lifetime of experience that tells me you will get through this discomfort. You will get through this situation you don't like, and you will find some benefit at the end. So that's one of the advantages of being older. But yeah, prayer and trying to look at it through the filter of transcendental knowledge instead of the filter of what I think I am owed. I heard once in a non-devotee setting, someone talking about how we get into this why me thing, right? And this person says, well, why not me? What is so special about me that I think I should never have to go through difficulty? So just that. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Mother. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So beautiful. I was fortunate enough. One time I was giving Sunday class, and I suggested to the devotees not to pray, and I got myself into big trouble for making such a statement because prayer is one of the 9 processes of devotional service. But I said that, and I continue to believe that till today, that the few readings I have done in our scriptures, seeing how great devotees prayed to the Lord, it's not the same way people of today pray. And as such, if we continue to pray the way we pray, it might end us up being faithless in Krishna, because when we pray to Krishna, instantly we're telling Krishna, this is happening to me, I don't want this to happen to me, change this, I'm expecting this. But the great devotees from the scriptures, each time they prayed, I do not actually understand how that is prayer, because it's just adoration, glorification. They just glorify Krishna. Even on the battlefield of correction, or the battlefield, when people's life is at danger, every second you lose, you're going to lose your life. Praying to Krishna and telling Krishna what your immediate needs are, they glorify Krishna, which I cannot do. So I suggested that if devotees cannot pray just like the way these great personalities prayed in the scriptures, then I think it might be very dangerous for us to be praying the way like a typical Christian will pray, give me this, give me that, give me this, give me that. And if at the end of the day, what we're praying for do not manifest, how much faith are we going to have in Krishna? So my question to you is, what is your advice to devotees in general when we go on our knees and pray to the Lord?
It's a very, very good question. And this is actually something that I have been struggling with and having my own personal realizations about recently. Prabhupada said Krishna is not your order supplier. Don't be asking him for things. He criticized, give us this day our daily bread. Let Krishna give you what he wants. But he also said, if you want something and you're gonna ask, don't ask anybody else. Ask Krishna.
Ask Krishna.
Yeah, and I have struggled with this, not wanting to ask Krishna for things, right? And I think it really depends on where you are. If you are so transcendental that you don't need to ask for anything, that is the highest, right? That's these pure devotees pray and they glorify Krishna. But that doesn't mean that we can't ask Krishna for things. For me, asking Krishna for things is part of having an authentic relationship with him. Krishna knows what I want. It's not that by not telling him, I'm hiding that information from him, or by telling him, I'm not telling him anything he didn't already know. For me, when I'm telling him this, I am acknowledging, yes, I want this. That's part of my authenticity. And no, I can't do it by myself. And that, as I said, that's a lesson that I am learning right now. I think when we pray for things, the important part of that is to understand that Krishna may say, I'm not going to give you that right now. That is not what is best for you. That is not time for that, or that is not the right thing for you. A lot of times, I think as human beings, but also as devotees, we look at another devotee's life and think, why can't I have that? right? Krishna, I would like that wife, that house, that service, that whatever. And Krishna may say, no, that's not the thing for you. That's not what you need, right? So understanding that I may ask Krishna for things and he may say no, and that's okay. It's, perfectly fine. That's important. But I also find that the most useful prayers for me are not change the situation.
Mm.
The most useful prayers are help me to understand the situation, help me to endure the situation, help me to learn what you want me to learn from the situation. Help me to trust you. These are, because really what I want is to be happy, right? That's what I really want.
Yeah.
And I'm praying for these things because I think they're going to make me happy, but the relationship with Krishna, that's what's really going to be. So, but definitely there are times when it's like, Krishna, I have to have this thing. I have to be able to see my children. I have to be able to see my grandchildren. I have to be, and it's like a little kid, my granddaughter comes to me and she's like, I want raisins. I want them now. I must have them, right? And I love her. So I'm not offended that she asked, but I'm not always going to give them to her.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Krishna loves us like that.
Yeah. Very practical answer. Thank you so much. Thakur Murari, please, you may unmute.
Yeah, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I'm trying to get myself up to see. Okay, Hare Krishna,
Yes.
please accept my humble obeisances.
Please accept
And
mine.
goes to Srila Prabhupada. And thank you for the presentation. Just a quick comment on the prayer. I think in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna said there are 4 persons who come to him, distressed and seeking for, yes. And okay, and in the Srimad Bhagavatam, there's I'm not sure I remember, but it says, those who have broad intelligence, but they're seeking for full of material desires, without desires or seeking for liberation, should by all means worship the supreme or personality of Godhead. Okay. So yeah, I myself, we don't want to go to London. Please give me a nice house, give me a nice car, help me to, free from all this misery of life. But since the Lord says, you come to me, but with the intelligence, knowing that, okay, Krishna, everything's in your hand, so it's up to you, if you so desire, so be it. But we shouldn't be fearful and not praying, but with the knowledge that, look, everything in Krishna's hand, he knows, but then he says, whatever, please come to me. That's my little bit. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That phrase is what I do not want to use, and I do not want to hear devotees use. If Krishna so desire.
Yeah.
I mean, somebody is ill, dying, we praying to Krishna, please, Lord, give this person for us. And then we ended up and said, if you so desire, then why are we praying to Krishna? So I'm thinking that I said, Krishna, well, you have your plans. We don't know your plan, but this is what we are looking for. If even it is not right, make it right. Hare Krishna. Srimad Prabhu, please you be on mute. I'm excited. I'm sorry, devotees.
Yeah. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Okay. Yeah, just a quick comment on prayer also. Maybe 2 points to just make. One, it is recommended that we should also recite the prayers of pure devotees. So there's so many prayers of devotees in the Bhagavatam, and it's recommended that we should repeat those prayers.
Mhm.
So that is one way of praying. Another way of praying, of course, is asking Krishna for service. If we pray for service, then every other thing will be added. I mean, I'm not talking about this philosophically. I'm just saying from my own experience. I pray every day, and I pray for service. I pray every day about my service, and I'm asking Krishna to help me to get whatever I need to do for him and my guru to get them done. Every day I pray for this, and I think because it's very. I mean, everyone prays for what is dear to their heart. If you want money, you pray for money. You want health, you will pray for health. But praying to Krishna for service, that is actually the Mahamantra. That is the translation of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Krishna, O energy of the Lord, engage me in your service. So when we understand that, then even our chanting gets improved because we know that our connection with Krishna is through service. So we chant better. And even when we have to, verbalize our desire, it's not going to be anything else than, also coveting more service for Krishna. So I think there is a need to pray, but we should know what to pray for. If we pray for service, you remember I gave that example, one story here of the poor person who wants to receive the king, and this, everyone is asking the king whatever they want, but he said, "No, king, I want you to come and visit me." But he's a poor guy; he has nothing. He doesn't even know how to welcome the king. But the king accepts the offer or the invitation. And you know the end of the story. By the time the king is going there, his emissaries have gone ahead. They found the situation to be deplorable. They renovated everything, made a nice road, made a nice house. So just by inviting king to his house, everything was fulfilled. So that should be our mood. If we just can invite Krishna into our life and ask him out to serve him, every other thing will be fulfilled. That is a fact. And that should be our praying mode. Anyway, thank you for the opportunity. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. Mother Radha Devi, beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much. You spoke very motherly. That is very interesting. As I recall, Jesus Christ also said in the Bible that we pray and we do not get our prayers answered. Why? Because we do not know how to pray. So I think following the advice we're getting from the devotees today, we're going to learn how to pray. I guess this might be the last question for today. Shri Hari Chakra Prabhu, please you may unmute. Mother Radha, are you speaking from the US?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay. I thought you were in India because it will be quite late for you. Hari Chakra Prabhu,
Yeah,
please you may unmute.
yeah, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Mata. Thank you very much for all this detailed information that you have given. It's like what I have is like a comment and a question at the same time about this prayer issue. Sometimes it's very confusing to me too, because when we think about, I'm in need of something, and a lot of devotees we used to quote where Krishna says, "All kinds of people search for me," and we will quote those who are looking for wealth, those who are looking for, those who are in anxiety and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, we also tell ourselves that we don't know what is going to happen next to us because we cannot even foresee the future. So what about if I'm praying and now like I'm in dire need of, let me be a car that I can even use the car to go to, I'm trying to pray to Krishna. I need a car so that I can ride to the temple because from my home to the temple is far. But meanwhile, because I don't know the future, it's the car that is going to kill me. So if I'm seriously praying for Krishna to give me the car, isn't it like I'm praying to die? So what Bhara Prabhu was just saying is that the story about that poor guy who was to ask something from the king, and he told the king that I want you to come visit me. In this way, the guy is not going to get a car, but the king will make sure that before he comes to the place, everything is put in good place so that he, the king, can comfortably come and visit and go. So this issue of prayer, sometimes it baffles me, but as humans too, sometimes you sit down and you get into one corner and there's no way you are not going to tell Krishna, why? Why you not helping me with this? But meanwhile, there may be that particular thing that Krishna is not giving you is for your own interest, but we don't even know.
Yes.
So it's so complex. Sometimes it baffles me. So what do we do? Just chant Hare Krishna and go away, or what? Even when we are chanting the Hare Krishna, sometimes we have that mentality. Oh, there is this witch in my house who is trying to torment me. Let me chant Hare Krishna, because I know that if I chant Hare Krishna, witches cannot come close to me. So even chanting, some serious motive behind it. So what do we do?
Yeah. When I am really confused, I take it to Krishna. Dear Lord, I don't even know what I'm supposed to pray for. I am not feeling happy. I am feeling resentful towards you. And, please help. That's a fine prayer. The idea that we repeat the prayers of the acharyas, that we ask for service, this is powerful and this is wonderful. But I think we also have to have some self-awareness, right? If I can pray those prayers and be satisfied, great. What happens for me personally is I pray those prayers. I still want what I want, and I still think that somehow I'm the controller and I'm going to get it. And so I become manipulative and passive aggressive with the people around me, trying to manipulate the situation so that I get what I want, right? It's much healthier for me personally to simply acknowledge, I want a car, or I want whatever I want. Krishna, this is what I want. Now I'm going to leave it in your hands. Right? Because I know that I can't manipulate my way into this car, whatever. So for me, that's where I'm at. I can pray, please give me service. And all those other desires are still rattling around inside my heart, my brain, and I'm not able to put them down. When I take them to Krishna, then I'm able to say, okay, at least for today, just for this morning, I'm going to leave it in your hands, and I'm not going to try to manipulate anybody into doing what I want, giving me what I want. Not everybody has the same nature that I have. Not everybody's manipulative. So, but that understanding that Hari Chakraprabhu was talking about, that when Krishna doesn't give me what I want, knowing that this also is for my benefit. Just like Sudama Brahman was saying, hey, Krishna didn't give me a lot of wealth. He knows it wouldn't be good for me. That's, I think, the most important point, whether we're praying in a certain way or praying in a different way, but believing and knowing that Krishna is taking care of us and that whatever we get or we don't get is the right thing for us. That's important.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much. I do not pray very often, but occasionally when I do pray, I pray to the Lord, say, my dear Lord, look at Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada said, when he was materially poor, he never forgot about you. And when he became materially rich, he never forgot about you. So please, give me some material riches and help me not to forget about you.
Please teach me how to serve you with material riches, Lord. Yeah.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare
I love it.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Mother Radha. You've given me so much excitement. I've kind of overreacted, but I hope devotees will pardon me.
I love your enthusiasm.
Thank you. So, dear devotees, we're going to humbly request you all to kindly unmute, and we all chant Hare Krishna Maha Mantra to express our appreciation to our revered speaker, Her Grace Mother Radha Devi Ki Jai. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna,
Krishna
Krishna,
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 Hare
Hare Hare.
Hare, Hare
Hare
Rama,
Rama,
Hare Rama, Hare
Hare
Rama,
Rama,
Rama
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 Rama,
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 Hare
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 Hare.
Vancha
Vanchaka
Patapatanischa
Pavatapatiyacha
Kapasanija
Kripa
Evacha
Pavanabhyo
Ketanam Pavanadevyo Vaishnavevyo Namo Namaha.
All glories
Thank
to His grace.
Our
Radha
grace, Radha Devi Das Sekijai.
Devi.
thank you so much for your class, Mother.